So, okay, let us start this webinar on Introduction to Data Warehousing. I am Sandesh. I am a data warehousing professional with around 4.5 years of experience in this field. I have worked for multiple clients based in insurance, banking sectors. I have also an experience on ETL tools, a couple of ETL tools and 3 databases. And I will be taking you through this webinar on Introduction to Data Warehousing and what exactly you will be learning in this course. So this webinar is a high-level overview of what exactly you will be learning in the course. There will be no technical details. I'll try to keep it very simple and illustrative with some examples that you can actually relate in your everyday life, so that it will be very easy for you to understand. Okay. This webinar on data warehousing is an 18-hour course spread over 3 weekends. So it will be 6 days of 3-hour classes each. And it will be filled with illustrative examples with quizzes and assignments. The assignments that make you think a little. They are not straightforward questions, but the concepts that you learn in the class you will have to apply and other assignments. And there is the hands-on, the Talend module, which you will be building a data warehouse right from scratch. So we'll be giving you the requirements. You will analyze the requirements, and the requirements will be in plain English. You will analyze the requirements, create the design documents, diagrams. You will create the tables. You will populate the tables using Talend ETL tool. And what is special about this? It's a live instructor-led class, as all classes are with Edureka recording. If you happen to miss any class, or if you want to watch any of the classes, you can. The recording is always available in the learning management system of Edureka. 24/7 class support is available. So if you have any queries whatsoever regarding the technology, regarding the tool, the support staff is always available. And of course, project work and certificate is always there. We will implement a real life example. And also we will be giving you a real life scenario which you will have to work on and then submit as a part of your project. And finally, we will award you with the certificate from Edureka. So once again, welcome to all of you to this webinar. I just explained to you the how the system works. It will be live instructor-led class. If you happen to miss it, you can always go back to the recording. If you have any questions, you can definitely post it. There is a Twitter account. It's given down below, Twitter @EdurekaIN, where you can post your queries. The handle is #AskEdureka. Facebook account EdurekaIN, where you can also post your questions, and trust me, all your questions will definitely be answered. If you have any questions during this webinar, please make use of the questions window that you can see on the pop-up. As you all are aware that you are all on listen only mode, so please post your questions, and if there are an overwhelming amount of questions, definitely it will be a little difficult to answer it one by one, but definitely I will try to answer every question. And if it is not possible in this class, definitely we will use email, we will use Twitter, and we will use Facebook to make sure that your questions are all clarified. So this is how it's going to work. And coming to the objectives of this session, what exactly we will be learning in this session. What is data warehouse? Data warehouse architecture, What is the difference between a data warehouse and data mart? Of course, we'll not be going into much detail, but at a very high level, I will explain to you what is the difference. Why exactly is data warehouse used? Now, what is the business benefit? What is the strategic benefit for companies and for organizations if data warehouse is used? What is ETL? Now, what is data warehouse and what is ETL? And what exactly, I mean the module-wise presentation, what exactly you will be learning in the actual course. So, and of course, we'll, as always, with all of Edureka session, there will be hands-on. We will try to implement a very simple basic scenario. The objective of this scenario is not to introduce anything very technical, but to just give you a hands-on as to what Talend is, just so that you have that comfort factor before you go into the actual course. And as I have mentioned, for any queries during the session, you can always post on Twitter. You can always use the questions window. And if you need the recording of this, it will be provided to you. Please drop in an email to support@edureka.in. Okay, so what exactly is the data warehouse? Now, let me first take a simple English language example. What is a warehouse? A warehouse is a place where something is stored, a goods is stored. So now if I take the e-commerce, now e-commerce is a very big thing here in India. So if I take an example of an e-commerce website, now they have a warehouse where they will project a demand for products. They will procure it from the suppliers and store it in the warehouse. Now as soon as a supplier places the order, the good is immediately dispatched. Now take the data warehouse out of the equation. What do you get? You have the customers directly going to the e-commerce website. The e-commerce website is not storing any goods. When an order is placed, the e-commerce website people will directly go to the supplier and ask for the product. Now imagine the tremendous, now if 100 suppliers go to the manufacturer asking for the product because there is big demand from the consumers, imagine the strain that is placed on the manufacturer to supply those products. That is looking from the manufacturer's perspective. Now look from the customer's perspective. There is a delay in getting the product that a customer has ordered. Now nobody would like a delay. I don't like a delay. You don't like a delay. If I order something on an e-commerce website, I expect it to be delivered. Now if there is a delay of 2 days or 3 days, definitely it impacts the customer satisfaction levels and definitely you will lose customers. So that is an important concept to understand. Similarly, exactly similar to this is the data warehouse, where you will be storing the data that you will procure from the transaction system. Let me introduce two concepts here, two words, OLTP and OLAP, online transaction processing and online analytical processing. Analytical processing is where you use the data warehouse. Transaction processing is something that you will use to record each and every transaction. Let me give you a real life example. We all use ATMs. Every transaction that we do on an ATM is recorded in an OLTP system. Now ATM is not the only feeder to this OLTP system. Now when you go to a bank account and perform a transaction, even that is recorded. So there are multiple sources feeding into a particular system. Now if you want to perform querying on this system, you will have to join multiple different sources which have different formatting types of their own. So, and the second disadvantage is the number of transactions. Hundreds of customers use an ATM in a given day, and hundreds of queries, I mean thousands of queries and millions of queries are being hit on the entire OLTP system. So imagine there are a number of ATMs and a number of branches. Imagine the load that is going into the OLTP system. So this system is definitely not used for querying purposes. This system is definitely not used for analytical purposes. This system is only used to record a transaction, right? So now you have seen what is an OLTP system and what is an OLAP system. Let me give you another example to illustrate the different sources. Now, railway reservation. What are the ways in which you can reserve a railway ticket? You can go through mobile, you can go to the railway station to reserve, you can go to n number of agents that are spread across the city. These are multiple disparate sources. When you book a ticket on the internet, the format is entirely different from the one that you use to book from the mobile. The data types are changing. The kind of data that you record is changing. So these multiple disparate sources make it very difficult for querying, right? So I gave you two examples. One is the ATM example to illustrate how much strain it would place for querying on an OLTP system. The second example illustrates the multiple disparate sources which would be a hindrance to analytical processing. Now, based on this, at the end of the day, the end user would want reporting. The end user would want data for his reporting purpose. What do? So you create an alternate system. This is called as an OLAP system. There are, as you can see from the diagram of the first slide, there are multiple sources, source 1, source 2 to source n, feeding into a data warehouse. Now, this is not a simple feed. There are a lot of calculations, a lot of processing that happens before, a lot of validations that happen before data is loaded into the warehouse. And at the end, you have multiple users, user 1, user 2, and user n, trying to access this warehouse and trying to get some data and generate the reports. At this point, I will just stop for a while and look at the questions. I've had so many questions. Okay, it's all regarding the audio, I mean. Okay, ETL tool, which ETL tool are we using for this training? We'll be using Talend ETL tool. It's an open source tool, which is a very upcoming tool. So we'll be using that. And the difference between OLTP and OLAP is OLTP is online transaction processing. So as the name suggests, we use it for transaction purposes. And I gave you an example of an ATM. I said that the number of transactions on a particular system is huge. So we cannot use it for querying purposes, and hence we need an alternate system for the analytical purposes. Going forward, data warehouse is not loaded every time when new data is generated. That's the basic difference. Now, if you load the data every time it is generated, it becomes exactly like an OLTP system. So that is the basic distinction. You have a set frequency when you will load the data. For example, the business requirement says that data should come into our system by 9 a.m. in the morning. 9 a.m. is usually the meeting time of the early morning meetings of companies. So business says that data must be into our system by 9 a.m. so that we can generate reports and take decisions at the meetings. So what happens is by 3 a.m. we will start our data warehouse loads. We'll get files which we will load into the system. So data warehouse is not loaded every time. There is a schedule for loading it, and the schedule is determined by the business based on their requirements. Now, what is the business benefit that a business gets by implementing a warehouse? We all know that this is an era of competition and intense competition. It is not just enough if you take smart decisions, but you also have to take it on time. if you miss taking a decision, somebody else is already there pouncing on you. So let me take another example of a supermarket chain. Assume a supermarket chain is not implementing any data warehouse. It is very difficult for this supermarket to analyze what products are sold, what products are not selling, when is the time that the sales go up, what is the age group of the customers that are buying a particular product. So none of this analysis is possible. What you have is some goods getting in, some goods getting out without knowing anything. Now, that is not an ideal scenario. I want to make a decision, for example, when I say that this particular product is a hit among 18 to 25 age group, I will intensify my efforts to market that particular product to that particular age group, right? And suppose I get from the data that I see that this particular product is not selling as it is expected. So I will analyze why this product is not selling. What is the reason? Is this product not selling during a particular period of time, maybe from January to April when it is not selling, or is it not selling throughout the year? And then I'll be in a better position to make decisions to either not take the product or to suggest some improvements so that the product starts selling. So these are smarter decisions, and if you don't take them on time, then customers will obviously move out. This is about the supermarket chain. Now, this is regarding the customer satisfaction. When I talk about the strategic value that is given to a company. Okay, now I have one more question. Let me just take that. Difference between OLAP, ROLAP and MOLAP. Right now in this course, we are just introducing the OLAP concept. We are not introducing the ROLAP, MOLAP and HOLAP. Because the basic idea is to introduce what exactly is OLAP and then populating the OLAP, because what happens in production environments is most of the times it is OLAP that is being used. So when we see it from a job perspective, ROLAP and MOLAP are not that very frequent in its usage. So of course there are different technologies, but we'll restrict ourselves to OLAP. Okay, I was talking about the strategic value that is added to a company. Let me take an example of procurement department. Every company procures certain things from suppliers. There will be hundreds of suppliers supplying a product to a company. For example, desktops, laptops, stationery, etc. Now, before making any purchase, the company will definitely ink a contract with the supplier, saying that if you are charging 100 rupees for a particular product, please give us at a discount of 80 rupees because we are procuring, and what are the terms that should be followed when the procurement should be made, and etc. etc. Now, what is the guarantee that the supplier is following all the terms set in the contract? When a particular purchase is made, definitely a supplier will give an invoice to the company, and that invoice is a record of that particular transaction. Now I want to match this invoice data with the actual contract data to see whether all the terms are being matched or not. For example, the contract says 100 rupee product should be sold for us, sold to us at 80 rupees, and if the invoice says that it is more, it is that invoice says that the charge has been 100 rupees. So now how do you analyze if the data is not there? Hundreds of suppliers are producing such invoices to the company. Now you cannot go and sit with each and every invoice and do manual effort. So what we do is we will load the data into the dimensions and extract reports and see whether there is a match or a mismatch. If there is a mismatch, we will schedule a meeting with the suppliers and ask him why he has done so. So this is the strategic advantage, and also it gives the company more negotiating power. If, for example, a supplier has increased the price of a product to about 120 just in the previous month, and in the subsequent month again he has increased to 140. Now you can go and question him as to why he is doing that, but in the absence of data you end up paying much more. So the primary reason for a data warehouse is for a company to get that extra edge. This extra edge can be gained by taking smarter decisions in a timely manner. Smarter decisions can be taken only if executive responsible for such decisions have data at their disposal. Now there was a time when the fact-based decision and experience-based decision making was much more prevalent. We are moving from that area and going into an area where fact-based decisions have gained importance in our life. So data is very essential. Let us consider some strategic questions that a manager or an executive has to answer. How do we increase the market share of this company by 5%? Now, data warehouse is used for a specific business scenario. You need to know. That is the difference between having the big data. A lot of courses are there on Edureka on big data and Hadoop, etc. Those are unstructured data. Data from social media, Facebook, logs, clicks, hyperlinks, etc., etc. And you can just use them and store them without even knowing what you will get out of the data. But in a data warehouse, you will have to first have a clear-cut requirement that this is the question that I am asking, this is the objective that I am going to set. And only after you set it will you go forward in implementing a data warehouse, because implementing a data warehouse is very expensive. And if the end result is not matching your expectations, you would have put millions of dollars into creating something that you don't need, and that is not an ideal situation. So first you set your questions. What business scenario do you want to answer using this data warehouse? And then you go about creating the warehouse. Which product is not doing well in the market? I have already given you an example of a supermarket chain. To analyze which product is selling, which product is not selling, which product is being purchased more by a specific age group, etc. Which agent needs help with selling policies? Another example that I can give is the insurance sector. Suppose you observe that a particular, using your data warehouse, of course, that a particular agent is not selling policies as expected or in line with what other agents are selling. Now you have identified him through your reporting. Now what do? You understand the reason why he is not selling as much as he is expected to do. Maybe he's selling a few far less than what the others are selling. You will identify, is there a deficiency in the company? Is there a deficiency in the learning that we have provided to him? Is there does he need more training? Does he need more competence, etc.? Based on that, you can add tremendous value to that insurance agent who is not doing well, and you can actually motivate him and guide him into performing better. Now in the absence of a data warehouse, you just know that he is selling so and so policies, and you just end up admonishing him. So this is where even the employee satisfaction also can be gauged using the data in the warehouse. What is the quality of the customer service provided and what improvements are needed? Of course, this is very important because I will cover in the subsequent slide. There are two main reasons why company uses a warehouse, and one of the important factors is the customer satisfaction. Now, when a manager or an executive asks a question, now what is the flow that or the approach that he takes in order to arrive at the final decision? Now let us take an example. What is the quality of the customer service provided and what improvements are needed to be done? This is a larger question. Now he will break it down into multiple smaller questions. How many customer feedbacks do we have in the last 6 months? That is the first subset question that he has asked, which is derived from the overall question. Now he will fire a query on the database to analyze. So the database holds every customer feedback that he has got, so he will just make a statistic out of it, how many customer feedbacks. The second subset question is, now you have the number of feedbacks. How many customers have given a feedback of excellent, how many averages, and how many bad? Now you will, of course, you will have the customer name and the feedback given in two separate columns. So you will group by the feedback. You will group by the feedback. How many excellent feedbacks have you got? Let us say you have got 25 excellent feedbacks, 20 average feedbacks, and 15 bad feedbacks. Now, what is the next question that I have to ask? Now, why are people giving excellent? Why are people giving average? Why are people giving bad? They will have another column which has comments column. What are the comments that the customers have given in their feedback? Maybe one person says that your distribution channel is not good. Maybe one person says that your support is not good. And that is the reason why they have given. So we can identify why they have given the feedback that they have given. So all these three questions combined, you can have an overall picture of the quality of the customer service and what improvements are needed. Now he will hit the database, data warehouse, every time to get the result of these questions. He will consolidate all these results and arrive at a final solution, final decision. In the absence of data, there is just no way of knowing. And one more important factor is trends. You can study trends because data warehouse holds the entire history. It holds, for example, let us take from January 2014 to August 2014. If we are in September, it holds data till August 2014. Now I can see what trend is happening. A particular product is being sold in a particular month at a higher level. A particular product sales goes down in a particular month, and that happens at regular intervals. Now I can spot that trend because of this history, and when I spot that trend, I can make out a common factor and I can take a decision as to why that is happening. An operational system don't provide trends. They are merely transactional systems. Maybe you will purge the data going forward in the operational systems. I mean, you cannot maintain the entire from starting till the end, because the sheer number of transactions that are happening, millions of records are getting added. So somewhere down the line you would feel that maybe I don't need the 2 years of data or 3 years of data. So you might even consider purging them. But in a data warehouse, because the main purpose of the data warehouse is to store history, you will not be, you will not be deleting the history in the immediate future. And results are provided in a ready to access format. There are a number of reporting tools that will give you the results in a spreadsheet format or in a neat reporting format where you can take an analysis. What is ETL? The full form of ETL is extract, transform, and load. Extract, so the obvious question for extract, transform, and load would be what to extract, from where to extract, what to transform and how to transform, and where to load it. As you know that there are multiple disparate sources that are loading the data into the data warehouse. So you need to extract from the multiple different sources. There is no consistency in the data in the OLTP system, so you need to standardize all the data that is coming in, and then you have to load it into the data warehouse. Now usually what happens, most of the companies in the banking and insurance sector use mainframe systems. They are legacy systems, very old systems, and they are, which is very difficult for reporting, and they are now trying to migrate it to the data warehouse system. So usually in the production environment, what happens is the files are extracted, the data is extracted from the mainframes and sent to a Unix or a Windows server in the file format. And each file will have a specific standard format, so they will send it. They can send multiple files as well depending on the requirement. Let us say they send it at 3 AM in the early morning. So we process those files using an ETL tool, and some of the well-known ETL tools are Informatica and DataStage, but these are very costly and not open sourced. Talend is one open source system, and Kettle Pentaho BI is also another open source system. So we use any one of these ETL tools to cleanse the data. If you see a website, when a login form is given, most people do not enter their last names, or email address will be incorrect, or the age will be blank. So all these data needs to be cleansed. There might be special characters coming in the names. This is usually the case with foreign names, where a lot of special characters are included. So these data needs to be cleansed. Unwanted spaces can be removed, unwanted characters can be removed using the ETL tools, and then they are loaded into an area called as the staging area. So the file is loaded into an area called the staging area. In the staging area, all the business rules are applied. For example, there is a business rule saying that a particular record that is coming in should always be present in the master table record. If it is not present, we will not be moving it further. So we will have to do a lookup on the master table to see whether that record is present or not. If it is not present, you retain it in the staging area, otherwise you move it forward to the next level. And then we load it into the dimension. Now schedulers are also available to run the jobs exactly at 3 AM, or you can run the jobs when the files arrive. There can be time dependency as well as file dependency. So manual effort in running the jobs is very less, but at the end of the job runs, definitely we will have to validate whether the jobs have run successfully, if the data has been loaded successfully or not. Right? And tools available, I just told you. For ETL, we will have multiple tools. Informatica DataStage being very popular commercial tools. Talend and Pentaho Kettle being the open source tools. For reporting, business objects and Cognos reporting tools are very popular. In the open source area, Jasper reporting is very popular. The next slide is you will get the overall architecture of the data warehouse. There are multiple transactional systems, source 1, source 2. Now the source need not just be the mainframes. It can be SAP, it can be flat files. So there can be a combination of sources. And the ETL tool is used to load the data warehouse and data marts. And what are data marts? Of course, we'll be studying it in depth in the course. But the difference between a data warehouse and data mart is that data warehouse is used across the organization, and data marts are used for individual customized reporting. For example, there are multiple departments in a company. The finance department is different from a marketing department. They all draw data from different sources. So, and they need customized reporting. Finance department is mainly concerned with the statistics, and marketing department is mainly concerned with the promotions. The marketing department need not get the finance information. So for customized reporting, they create subsets of the data warehouse. It's called data marts. Now there is another way also. There are two approaches to loading it. One is to first load the data warehouse and then load the data marts, or to load the data marts and then load the data warehouse. So we will study these approaches in our class. What are the advantages and what are the disadvantages? Now, coming to the reporting, that is called the data access layer, where user actually accesses the data warehouse and generates the reports. All these reporting tools are meant to make the front interface very easy for the consumer, because people at decision making level usually are not concerned with technical details. They are not concerned with writing queries and extracting the reports. They are mainly concerned with a neat usable report. That's it. So all these reporting tools does that at the front end, but at the back end what they do is they generate the queries and hit the data warehouse, and user gets the reports just in time. And these reporting tools also can schedule the jobs to run and generate the reports at a depending on a particular schedule. Even you can schedule that. Advantages of a data warehouse: standardizes data across an organization, smarter decisions, and as I said, I gave you examples of ATM, railways, supermarket chain, procurement, customer feedback, etc. All these things either are aimed at reducing costs or increasing revenue. reducing costs, drop products that are not doing well. I took the example of a supermarket where you can put targeted ads and remove the products that are not doing well. Negotiate for improvement with suppliers. I gave you an example of procurement and how it provides a strategic negotiating power to the company to negotiate better. Increase in revenue, work on high selling products. Again, going back to the supermarket example, customer satisfaction. And in the example that I gave, customer satisfaction is, and I said that it is one of the main reasons, because it is very important for a company to know what is working and what is not working. Now, coming to the hands-on, we have a particular set of data files which I've already created. It's a very small example, so a very small limited data set we'll be taking, and we have a requirement. We will create the tables and we'll populate the tables, and for my purpose I'll be using PostgreSQL for creating the tables and Talend Open Studio for loading the tables. But in the actual class you will be using MySQL, which is an open source tool, and MySQL for creating the tables and Talend Open Studio for loading the tables. But there is not much difference between, I mean, the querying is the same, just the front-end editor changes. And this is how you will do it in the actual project. Requirements will be given in plain English statement. You will identify a business scenario and will give you a requirement. You will have to identify entities and the relationships between them. What do I mean by entities is, for example, a company has different entities. The company has customers, the company has employees, the company has products that are being sold. These are different entities, and the relationship between them. Employees are employed by a company, so that employed by becomes a relation. There can be multiple types of relation, one to many, many to many. So all these will be studying. Attributes and facts, you will have to identify what are attributes. For example, an employee will have his name, first name, last name, age, date of birth, etc. and the measures that you want to capture in the fact table. For example, the quantity of product sold or the amount of sales that is generated. All these are facts. You will develop a model. There are again multiple types of models, the star schema, snowflake schema, which you will go in depth. You will develop a schema, you will create the tables, and you will link those tables together. You will using the MySQL, of course. Here I have given PostgreSQL, but here in your class you'll be using MySQL. You will populate the tables using an ETL tool called Talend. First you will load the tables in the staging area, where you will cleanse the files. You will remove some special characters and extra spaces. You will load it into staging. From staging you will load it into dimension to fact. And then you will perform the testing of the jobs to make sure that your requirements are met. Now this is a simple scenario that I wanted to tell you. The idea of this scenario is not to introduce technical details or of creating the tables or creating the jobs. The idea is to just give you a comfort level with Talend, so that it will be easier for you to actually work in the class. Now I have an input, and this is a common scenario which we use while loading dimension, because dimension is a denormalized table. That means that data comes in from multiple different sources, like I mentioned. So you will have to look up on multiple tables to get the data. So we will be simulating that limited scenario here. The input, I have two tables, input and lookup. The input table has three columns: country name, salesperson, and sales. The lookup table has two columns, sales and rating. Now the common column between the two tables, input and lookup, is sales. I will do a lookup on sales column and get the rating. For example, if the sales is 100, the rating is excellent. If the sales is 50, the rating is good, and so on. And I will populate a file in the target, country name, salesperson, sales, coming from the input, and rating coming from the lookup table. I have introduced both the tables as well as the files. These are the two different sources which are most commonly used in the production environment, so that you get comfortable. So this is my data set. I already have the data, so I will just create the tables. So you can all see my screen, right? There is no problem in seeing the screen or hearing me. So can you all see my screen? Can you reply in chat window just to make sure that you all can see it? Okay. So using the PostgreSQL, I have the query. So this is the PostgreSQL window where you will fire the queries to create the tables. So I will just create a sample table called input underscore demo, right? So I will have country name which is of type character, variable character of 20, salesperson, and sales integer. I will just fire it. Input underscore demo already exists, so I will just take it as demo1 or input itself. So you can see that the query successfully returned. I mean, the query succeeded. Now if you want to see the whether the table has created or not, select star from input. You can see, of course, there is no data because I have not loaded anything yet. You can see 3 columns are already created. The next thing is I will have to populate the source tables. So I will just fire the insert queries that I have already prepared for this data set. If you want to see what I have loaded into the table, select star from input. You can see that there are 5 rows that have already been added, 6 rows that have already been added. It carries the country name, salesperson name, and sales figure. I have created my input table. Now I have to create my lookup table. So I will just fire the lookup create table query. Right, so create table, 2 columns. The query was successful. If you want to see, you can see that 2 columns are created and the data types of the columns as well. Next, I have to insert the records into this table. right? And if you want to see the records that I've inserted, you can see that records are inserted for all the 6. Now we have the tables ready, the data ready. We have to create a job to load the data from table to a file. We'll use Talend for that purpose. I'll go to create a new job. I will give the name of the job. The editor will load in some time. So now this is a Talend Open Studio editor. On the left side you can see the repository. Now what do I mean by repository? It is a collection of jobs and the metadata of each job. For example, if I use table, what is the table that I have used? What is the table name? What are the data types that are there? What are the column names? And what is the length of the columns? All those details come under the metadata. So repository is a collection of all this, the data about data. On the left side you can see the jobs, and on the right side you can see the components. There are so many components that Talend supports. For example, if you go to the databases component, you can see so many databases that are supported. You have DB2, you have Greenplum, you have Hive, Informix, MySQL is also supported, and Oracle is supported. But for our purpose we'll be using PostgreSQL, right? So we will use the PostgreSQL, and if you go inside you can see T PostgreSQL input, T PostgreSQL output. You will use it for different purposes, input and output. Now before doing that, I just want to create the, just want to show you the metadata DB connections. I've already created one DB connection called DB connection 0.1. So if I just drag and drop it here, it will ask me, I have created this metadata using the PostgreSQL connection. So it will ask me whether, what do I want to do? Do I want to take this metadata as an input, or do I want to take this metadata as an output? Since I'm creating an input table, I will just select the T PostgreSQL input, right? Okay. So you got the connection. What is the advantage of doing this? If you just click T PostgreSQL input and click it here, you will see that you have to give all these host, port, database, schema, username, password, and so on and so forth, all these details. And if you use it at 5 different places, you'll have to give it 5 different times. Instead of that, you just create a metadata, you save it here, and you can see that everything is already loaded here in this metadata. So all you have to do is load the table name, right? So I will just load the table name that I have given for this is input, right? And the other table name I have given is lookup. So I will give the same table name. The first table is input, and what are the columns that I have given? Country underscore name, and you go to edit schema, you will see the column names. You will have to give the column names, country underscore name, and if you click here, automatically the DB column gets reflected, country underscore name, right? And sales underscore person and sales. And the type of this should be string, and integer, because the last one is a number. And the DB type should be varchar. That is the difference. That is the advantage of using an ETL tool. The source data type can be of any type, and you will standardize it into a compatible data type. You will standardize it. So varchar of whatever I have given here, 20, length can be 20, Even here I can give varchar 20, and this is integer, I can give 10. Okay. Now an input is created, I need to create a lookup. So I will drag the same DB connection as my lookup table. Even that is an input, so I will take it as an input, and I will give the query here, select. You can also give guest query there. Since it's a small query, I will just give lookup table, and the table name is lookup. I will edit the schema. I have two columns. One is the sales, the other is the rating. Right? Sales would be an integer, and this would be a string. DB type would be a variable character. Now I have two different sources. I want to join these two sources together on a common column. What do I use? I will use if you go to processing, you will find many components here. For example, aggregate row. If you want to do the sum or count of the number of records that are passing through, or count of a particular column, you can use the aggregate row aggregator. The filter, filter columns and rows. If you want to filter a particular record with sales less than 100, you don't want to consider those, so you can use the filter component. Tmap is used to perform basic row level calculations. You can use variables in tmap to perform calculations. Sorter, sample row, all these components will explain in depth when we use the dimension jobs, but for now we'll use tjoin because we want to join it. We want to join the two tables together. The link should be main. So even though you connected a main link, it automatically turned it into a lookup link, right? So one will be a lookup and one will be a main source. Input. And what will be my output? It will be a file. So let me go to the file component. There are again four more types. Input. If you go to the input, you will find a delimited file, Excel file, and multiple other different types of files are also supported. And output. Since we want an output file, we'll go to output and we'll choose an Excel file. And I have to link the joiner with the Excel. Right? If you see the joiner, now on how does Talend know on what column to join? So I have to give the key definition. So I will look up on sales and sales. I will also include the lookup columns. The lookup column is nothing but the rating. Okay. Since I've not given the schema here, I just want the header to be included and I just want the sales. I will go to the saving the job. Now the output file doesn't have any columns, so I will just sync the columns from here, what columns I want to join. I want all columns from the input table, so I will take all the columns, and I want the rating column from the lookup, so I will just take the rating column. and the lookup column is rating. Right, so if you see the edit schema now, you will see that all the columns are automatically propagated. I will press save. And let us try running the job and see if we get any errors. Now if to run the job, I need to run demo. The play button, the green button, if I click it, it's trying to build the job. The backend code is Java. Talend translates all this into Java. So it's building the job. Okay, you can see the statistics here. 6 rows were taken in from the input, 6 rows matched with the lookup, and 6 rows propagated in the output file. Now let us see whether our output file is propagated correctly or not. The file will be there in the workspace directory with sales.xls as the name. So I will go to my workspace directory with sales.xls. You can see that the file is generated as per our expectation. There are 4 columns: country name, salesperson, sales, and rating. This rating column was populated from the lookup table. All these 3 columns were populated from the input table. So this was a small example of how we do lookups using Talend. We use the join component and 2 tables and 1 file. And this is where you will design dimension jobs, staging jobs, all the jobs. You will cleanse the data, you will load it into staging, then finally you will load it into dimension. Now that I have given the screenshot of what I've done. And this is the one of the dimension jobs. So you will end up in the final project, you will end up doing this, designing the dimension job. And this will be the course curriculum. The final dimension job may look complicated, but if you understand the flow as to what is being done, then trust me, it is very simple to understand. You just have to understand the flow, and the technical details will follow. So this is the course curriculum. First we will introduce data warehouse. We'll introduce you to what is data mart, what are the approaches to loading a data warehouse, the top-down approach, the bottom-up approach. The second will be dimensions and facts. There are multiple types of dimensions and multiple types of facts, and the loading logic for these dimensions are different. So when you design, when I say an SCD type 2 dimension, the loading logic slightly varies from the SCD type 1 dimension. So what are the types and how to load it, we will explain in module 2. Module 3, normalization and schemas. What is normalization? It is breaking up of data into multiple tables. And why cannot we store everything into one table? It becomes too crowded, and even if there is a change in one column, then you will end up loading all the columns. So what we do is we normalize the data. And schemas, of course, the star schema, snowflake schema, we are going to look at it. And modeling. So entity relation, given a requirement, how do you model it into entities and relationship between entities? How do you make out the attributes, etc. The entity relationship modeling will be explained, and the concept of ETL, how an ETL tool works, what are different types of ETL tools, how it performs its job, and of course Talend will be introduced. Last is the project on Talend. So we'll be creating, as I explained, the entire flow. You'll be given a requirements and you'll be creating and loading into dimension tables. Here I have tried to introduce SCD type 1 and SCD type 2 dimensions, which are most used dimensions. So type 1 and type 2, how they differ and how to load them, we'll explain in the project on Talend. And finally, you will do a project, it's a certification project, which you will be doing, and you'll be earning the certificate. So if you have any questions, please do ask in the question window, or you can email the links that I gave you, the Twitter account, the Facebook account, and of course you can write in to us, support@edureka.in. And we come to the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for giving a patient hearing. I hope we have covered the topics and you've got some knowledge out of it. Thank you very much.